Sorry for the delay. Welcome, we're glad you're here. Welcome to the Bennington Board of Education. I'll call the meeting to order on this December 8th at 6:04. We'll begin this evening with our pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Our meetings are governed by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is located on the south wall. Jody, thank you for verifying publication and notification of our meeting this evening. And we'll begin with our public forum. There's some gold-colored sheets that are in the back of the room, so if you'd like to address the board, now is your time to come and speak with us. And we will call you up, and we're going to allot about 5 minutes or so, just so we can make sure we get to our board business for this evening. Looks like we have one person. If anybody else would like to speak, please get your sheets up here to Jody. We'll start with Carol Dussel-Strani.
This will be short. I went to try to just go through things last night, and it's probably going to get addressed, but I just had some questions as I looked at things because I didn't know what they were. I tend to like details and why. So I didn't realize we were adding tennis. Has there been something that says what the cost of it, like, I know the coaching part I saw in there, but like the uniforms and all that extra stuff. And I'm assuming we all balance out with the Title VII because we have girls wrestling now. Those are just thoughts that I had. And then we're switching the dean to an assistant principal. I was just curious, is that, it looks like it's for upcoming years, but then why now? Or I'm curious on the timing, or why the switch from a director to an assistant principal. I don't know, this will make me look not so good probably, but the difference between the HVAC service contract and the train service contract, they seem, I think of train as being HVAC, but it's probably not. The other thing, the blocked license plate reader is requested by the city of Bennington. I was just curious what that was. And then my last question was on the site paving for the new school. I know there's different types of cement and all that kind of stuff. I just remember construction at the current high school. It seems like after they had it, we had a whole bunch of damage to the parking lot, so I was just kind of curious on the timing. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Carol. I think we're going to answer many of those questions. If not, Dr. Foss will follow up here and make sure you get your questions answered. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak with the board this evening? Quiet bunch. Okay. All right, the next item is our consent agenda. And here we will approve the agenda, the minutes from our last meeting on November 10th, presentation of December bills for approval and payment, and also our personnel report. Who had bills this evening? Kara, Joe, and Ian. Is there anything of note you guys would like us to know?
Oh, there was just one question about some things with main and oxygen that we got answered as far as yearly repairs and checking, so.
Perfect. All right, I believe there is a proposed motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll, please.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us to our reports and presentations section of the board meeting, and we'll begin with our administrative reports. And Mrs. Delwa is here for our elementary report. Is it Delwo?
Delwo.
Sorry, I always get that wrong. Okay.
Take you back.
Yeah.
Hi, Allison Delwo, principal at Pine Creek. We just gave an overview. Every student, kindergarten through 6th grade, I think kindergarten through middle school is in the middle of math testing right now. The elementary also does M-class testing, which the teachers sit one-on-one with their students to help them really gather data on student strengths and needs so that they can plan reading instruction moving forward into the next semester. Each elementary has also had a spelling bee. Ours is coming up here the last week of before break. But the spelling bees are a really great opportunity to see the kids shine, and they are amazing spelling the words that they spell even in front of an audience. And we've had elementary food drives. Some of the elementaries supported the food bank before Thanksgiving, and some are doing it here before winter break. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our middle school report with Mr. Applebeck.
Good evening, Luke Southbeck, principal at Bennington South Middle School. We also had our annual spelling bee in the month of November. Congratulations to Raina, Reese, Hayden, and Paxton. They were our champions and runner-ups from the middle school. They will compete in a regional tournament in January. We also had our middle school choir had the honor to perform at Hy-Vee for their Veterans Day breakfast. They did a great job. Thank you to Miss Eagle who helped to coordinate that event. Our sixth graders at Bennington South were lucky to have Lieutenant Colonel Doug Kibbe, who's a retired para at Bennington South, come speak to them on the importance of Veterans Day. And then we also had our Learn, Grow, Lead Awards for Xers 1 and 2. That's where our teachers recognize students who go above and beyond in the areas of learning, growing, and leading. And so we were fortunate enough to have Roy Ballou, former Husker and NFL running back, come speak to students. It was a great message on perseverance. And then wanted to say a personal thank you to our PTO. They always go above and beyond of recognizing students. And we celebrated the 67th day of school. You can cross that off your 2025 bingo card. And so it was a fun lunch where students were able to roll some dice to get some 6-lets or 7-up. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Lamberty with our high school report.
Greg Lamberty, Bennington High School principal. Wanted to highlight a set of the pictures on page 2, and primarily Mr. Mattis and his building and construction class. There were only 2 kids in the class, but we kept it for this exact reason, a smaller on-site project where the kids essentially tore out a bunch of drywall and eroding walls and replaced it with a tile project. So 2 kids, Luke Vitalo, Leora Hoffman, are supervised by Mr. Mattis. He drives them over there. And they worked probably over the course of close to a month to complete the project. So thank you to them. The other thing I'll highlight is just our final schedule. So as you know, most everybody on the board has kids or has had kids go through the final exam. Anxiety that starts next Wednesday. So we'll run 3 periods, 3, 5, and 7 on Wednesday, 4, 6, and 8 on Thursday, and then come back with 1 and 2 on the short and last day. Blocks are 90-minute testing blocks. Kids can opt out of 25% of their schedule. So probably some strategy there, like a kid on a 4, 5, 6 period day gets 1 test, and then 7 or 8 period day gets 2. And then the freshmen take all of their exams. So that will be the fun we're having next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Kids in the back are super pumped.
You can't see all that.
Kellen Lenard is back there who specifically told me he cannot wait for the next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
He is not it.
A lot of red faces back there.
Questions for me?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next up is student services with Mr. Bombeck.
Hello, Student Services, Kevin Bombeck. This month I want to highlight High Ability Learner Program. I think it's important to note that we have a lot of students that do very well in our district. Up the top, it talks about our criteria. I do want to note on this piece that we have some of the highest criteria to get into our health program in the area. It's incredibly difficult to do that, and yet we have growing numbers. As you look at the first table there, last year we had 274 students in health program, 285 this year, so an increase of 11 students. As we look down at the next middle school qualifications, the students that are choosing to participate in our health program, we have an increase of 22% attending health program services at Bennington Middle School, and an increase of 14% from last year at Bennington South Middle School. So we see those percent students are choosing to go to receive that program at health programming, which is an incredible piece for them to be able to access those services there. And then finally on our last graph, projection-wise, we're looking at an increase at Bennington Middle School of 14 students from last year and 21 students at Bennington South Middle School from last year. So we're looking at, overall, when we look at our programming, we have high cutoffs. We can't really do anything to adapt those, nor would we want to kind of look at that as hard maybe. But what we are seeing that regardless of our cutoffs and our ability to get in, we're seeing increasing students getting into our programs and choosing to utilize those services, which is amazing for the district and something we need to look at in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Keeney, instruction assessment.
We have Jimmy Feeney, Director of Secondary Education. This is assessment season. The NSCAS reports and the ACT reports go out to families, and those were sent out to families in a couple different forms. Far earlier than when this releases. This was our public scores and how our district compared to everybody else. One thing that was really exciting, if you saw the Omaha World Herald article come out, Bennington fared very well in not only increasing our scores, but being either in the top 2, and for science being the top 1 in the metro area. So that was really exciting to see. You can see the breakdown of scores and how those compared across a few of the local area districts as well as some of the EMC. If you continue to scroll down, please. Then as you get into another piece that we want, or the high school ACT is reported there as well. So again, against that Nebraska state average, we're showing some really positive scores. 2 things that are required of us through legislation in the recent years is to report to the board, give a status report about financial literacy and computer science. Pretty simple here. We have a personal finance class as graduation credit. So that one you can check off your list. If you want more details, I have this for you if needed. But we also have a statute that requires computer science, as well as there's this one requirement for that K-12 continuity of instruction, as well as a graduation requirement. And we do have both of those in our pieces. So as far as that status update, if you would like any details, certainly let me know. And then it is a big time of year as far as getting those middle year diagnostic type assessments. So for our kindergarten through 8th grade, we're looking at that math growth and some additional tests in our elementary, high school. We run a lot more into those final exams, as Dr. Lamberty explained. And then January 5th is a fun day for us. We get to put our teachers up in front of other staff members, and they get to show their expertise with our selected sessions. That's always a really fun day to wander the halls and see the excitement of the people presenting and the people listening to them. So it's a great way for our staff to connect on that K-12 level. So we're really looking forward to January 5th. Nice way to welcome teachers back to second semester, pick up a few tips as they go into their end of the year. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you. Bill has a lot of work planning with this, so thank you. All right, next up is our operations report with Dr. Blumenkamp.
Good evening, Madeline Camp, Assistant Superintendent. Just a couple of highlights from my report. It's pretty brief this month, but a couple of things. One, we are in full swing with activities taking place outside groups using our facilities, Bennington Elementary, the middle schools, for winter activities, whether that's our basketball programs or we have soccer programs that are in some of our elementary schools. Great relationships with our youth organizations in Bennington, continue to have a really good relationship with those people and continue to try to work with them to provide them as much opportunity and access as we can get them. So appreciate that relationship, and also appreciate the help at each of the schools with the administration and the custodians to make sure that it's still a school where we have class every day, and we gotta make sure that it's operational and it's clean and it's taken care of. And so I really appreciate those people as well, particularly our 2 middle schools. We have a lot of youth basketball groups that every evening are using both Bennington North and Bennington South Middle School. And so there's a lot of stress on those gyms, and they do a great job. So I want to thank them. The other thing I'd like to report on tonight is we're excited that we were able to work with Sapp Brothers in order to purchase 2 500-gallon drums, one for gasoline and one for diesel. We're going to install the gasoline drum at the warehouse and the diesel fuel drum at the bus barn, where we now can fuel our buses and our vans and our vehicles on site as needed. Continue to go to Cubbies and fill up as well there, but Cubbies continues to get busier and busier, and we continue to add more and more vehicles to our fleet. There are only 3 diesel pumps at Cubbies, and so there are times where it's a wait for our bus drivers. And so we were able to work with Staff Brothers. Mr. Edens was able to secure a drum at each of those two sites. There is some installation that we're putting in right now as well, but he will monitor gas prices. We'll be able to buy gas in bulk and be able to maybe have a little bit of savings with some gas to be able to buy that on our own. So those are my two things to report on for my reports and any questions I can answer.
So would you mind touching on the train as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That will answer Carol's question also.
Yeah.
Kill two birds with one stone. So there are two contracts tonight. One that is that we'll talk about a little bit later in the board meeting, and that is for our HVAC equipment. So our air handlers, our heat pumps, so on and so forth, the equipment that is serviced across all of our buildings in Bennington Public Schools. We have a service agreement. It will be a 3-year service agreement that we'll talk about. The other portion that takes care of HVAC are the control portions of it. So you see the controls that are on the walls that take care of the temperatures in all of our classrooms and all of our areas. Train monitors that. All of our controls are trained controls. We did it to try to be consistent across the district when we were building all of our facilities. And so we're up again for a 3-year contract with Train and are going to go into a contract with them and they'll continue with what they've been doing for us here for, I think it's 6 years we've been with Train with our control contract. So one's for controls, one is for the equipment. Questions about that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our superintendent report.
I'm not gonna go over all 3 pages, but I'm just gonna go over a few of them on the first page. First thing we had on there is just demographers and the boundary line analysis. We did enter into a contract with RSP and Associates. RSP and Associates does this work out of Kansas City. They last came into the district in 2022 and provided a report. These reports, they will give you a review of what current demographics look like around the district, a historical analysis. It'll look at a review of what current housing trends are looking like, what it could potentially look like into the future, and they'll also give you projections for enrollments into the future as well. And so obviously in a district like ours where growth happens quickly and things change, I think it's probably important that we don't only do this, we're going to probably put out a rotation, whether that's every other year, every 3rd year. I just don't know that we can go super long between doing an analysis like that. You know, the one that they did in 22, I think was really good. Interest rates were about 3% at the time. You know, 2 years later, interest rates are 7% to buy a home, and all of a sudden it looks a lot different. And so they're not able to predict those things when they're putting it together. So I think we're going to have to probably get on a rotation for that. But they will do that here late in the spring and give us a report. We're looking forward to that. A second report that they're going to give us will be this summer, where they'll outline potential boundary lines, preliminary boundary lines for particularly the second high school. We'll spend most of next year just reviewing options and ideas. We'll do this within our committees of the board with this still the end goal to have that boundary official and announced by the following summer. So the summer of 27. So end of the summer, early fall of 27. That way parents and students and everybody know what those boundary lines are almost an entire school year prior to the new building opening. So questions there? All right, second one is mascots and colors, kind of staying on the same theme. Our core team has met 4 times. We've continued to review different color options, trying to figure out how to do that while, you know, honoring our school community, our historical context, also knowing that a new building is going to have its own identity as well. And so they've been working through that process. They're refining those color palettes and also mascot choices. Those will be going into board committees that you guys will see. That way you guys can ask questions, you can, you know, add, subtract, but be a part of the process as well. The board committees will review all those, will analyze them, and ultimately hope to bring a recommendation here during the second semester of this year. So everybody knows what the colors and mascot will be at that time. Third thing I want to talk about is the School Finance Review Commission. Just a reminder, this was a group that was put together by the governor's office to review the school funding formula and make recommendations to the legislature on things that can make that a little bit more streamlined or easier to understand. The commission is kind of a reminder, it's 18 people, so you got state senators, you got former state senators, you got teachers, you got superintendents, you've got people from all walks of life that are coming in. And I think our first meeting was like September, and we had to have a report into the legislature by December 1st. And I think there was some thoughts that maybe that report was going to have some recommendations to it. But when you take 18 people that have a wildly different understanding of the TIOSA model, we really spent the first 4 months just trying to get ourselves centered on data, understanding how the system worked, and then the formula worked. And so we called that phase one, our phase one, and that went through December 1, and that report was submitted to the legislature on December 1, where it just basically said, this is what we're going to do in the upcoming year. Because statutorily now, every November 1st, another report has to go to the legislature. So now we're entering phase 2, and some things from phase 1, I guess I just wanted to talk about that I found interesting of our preliminary findings. The first was the amount of funding that was coming from the state to our education. So if you go back to 2019, 2020, 38% of all funding for education came from the state. Last year, 24, 25, 53% of funding came from the state. Much of that was the front-loaded property tax credit, the school district property tax credit that we're all going to start seeing on our property taxes beginning next year. During that same time period, our local funding went from 56% down to 38%. So as money from the state came in, the amount that came in locally decreased as well. And so part of this charge also from the governor was, always looking at the lens of property tax reduction. And so I think, you're seeing some of that just with the amount of money the state's put in. So that was kind of an aha moment for a lot of people. I think I knew it. I didn't know the numbers, but we've seen a lot of money come in the last couple of years, which is a lot of people like us to reduce our levies as well. And then now that it's on the property tax credit, it's taking that off of everybody's property taxes instead of the income off their income taxes. So that was a big change. The other one for me that I thought was really interesting was the effective tax rates. So we still have a wide range from people that are taxing at $1.05 all the way down to like 20 cents in some districts. And so you've got this big gap of what people are paying on their levies. But with the school district tax credit that's coming in, we started looking at effective tax rates. And so essentially, if we're taxing at $1 here for our general fund and special building fund, we're at $1, but with the front-loaded tax credits, our patrons are actually paying 67.6 cents. So we're getting almost 30% reduction off of our tax asking compared to what's actually being paid by local patrons. And so while we have large gaps within our state, as you look at the effective tax rate, it does start to narrow a little bit because they're not receiving as much in that in a school district that has a 20-cent levy compared to ones that are higher like us at $1. And so we're going to have to start looking at ways to help people understand and also how that effective tax rate changes things for our state. The third one is we did a comparison of other states as well. If you go back to 2019, 2020, I think we looked at 13 pure states, similar demographics, size. We're not comparing ourselves to New York or California. Those aren't comparables. But our comparable states, we were towards the bottom in state funding towards education in 2019. We fast forward to 24, and this data isn't out. They're always way behind on the state side. I think it was like 21 or 22 is the last time that they had this information. But pretending that it was the exact same ratios, we were actually fairly high now in the amount that the state is giving to education. It was like third or fourth out of the 13. And so we went from very close to the bottom to pretty high up without, that data is not exactly finalized yet. So that was interesting as we continue to look at what that could be like. So as we transition to phase 2, first thing that we need to do is and this is really important to me, we can talk about maybe increasing the amount the state would put into education to offset property taxes and also help our school systems. But number one is we've got to figure out how not to allow it to erode away. We've gone from 38% to 53% in the last several years. Number one is making sure that we maintain that 53%. State goes through budget shortfalls. They're down almost 500 million right now. Those times are going to happen. So how do we protect what is coming into our local districts first? And then we're going to have to try to probably set a target, which would be a goal for the state of, you know, we're at 53% funding right now. Could it be 60? Could it be 65? We haven't got that far yet. As we started those conversations, the amount, you know, some people were saying 100, some were saying 50. Like it was all over. So eventually we've got a target, like we think the state should fund 60% of education or whatever it was. Interestingly, when this exact same commission was put together in 1988, before it was disbanded, they put the target at 45%. And so that was what it was, how many ever years ago, which is great. So we still got to figure out what that looks like. Then we need to really dive into the formula on the needs and the resources side, make sure that it's appropriate, it's functioning like it should. It is complex and it's hard to understand. That's always a concern. It also, everything's in there for a reason. And so trying to figure out how to maybe just streamline it, yet also ensure that schools, as they need the resources, it's available there as well. And then we're gonna have some discussions about district spending. You know, what does that look like? What are per pupil costs? What happened since this infusion of money came in from the state? How have districts reacted to it? But we're gonna have some really, really tough and really good conversations as well. And how do we stack up? You know, schools have generally increased their spending about 3.1% over the last, I believe, 10 years. How does that compare to other indexes? You know, we are real people heavy. About 80% of our expenses are human capital. And so that's different than a CPI, you know, that's just not the exact same index. So trying to figure out which indexes are appropriate to measure against, and then saying, are schools spending appropriately? Are we above or behind? What does that look like? And so we've got some conversations ahead on that as well, but a lot of good work's been done. I'm excited for the next year. It's going to be, a lot of the heavy lifting is going to take place here in the next 11 months. So, questions on the School Finance Review Commission? Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our committee reports. I think we have some action items. Is there anything from Building and Finance we want to highlight or summarize? Nothing that I can think of, but I want to give you guys a chance if you want to weigh in. Okay. All right, anything from the Curriculum Committee? Okay, perfect. I think we'll wait till later in the agenda to address those. Excuse me. All right, I think that brings us to our new business for this evening. I skipped over something. Oh, shoot. Gosh, I'm sorry.
I was just anticipating there.
I was like, what is Jimmy going to propose on new business? I was thinking ahead. Okay.
I was like, I don't have anything to say, so.
I'm sorry, I skipped right over you. So the spotlight report is a PLC process update with Mr. Feeney, Mrs. Rocker, and Mrs. Rock.
Well, thanks for the introduction there. You know, we sat down with this PLC process and started talking about what we wanted in a PLC. And one of the things that we came to was each of our buildings was calling the PLC something a little bit different. All really powerful practices, all good things that we need in our school. But how do you define a PLC at Bennington Public Schools is kind of what we set out to. So this time last year, we sat down with our administrative team and looked at a few different definitions. The DuFour frameworks and the different PLC models they put out are some of the best. And so we started there and started talking about what does working collaboratively look like? What kind of cycle do we want for our teachers to be looking at student learning? And how are we going to focus on that job-embedded piece of improving learning for our students on a cyclical basis? Some of DuFour's work follows up with kind of three big ideas. And you want PLCs to focus on student learning. You want there to be a collaborative culture with collective responsibility and a results orientation. The other thing they recommend is using 4 guiding questions for your PLC work. So just to give you some historical background on it, we wanted you to understand where the research came from and what kind of things we looked at. But you can see all of those pieces we just talked about ingrained in those 4 questions. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? How will they know if they learn it? How will we respond when some students do not learn it? And how will we extend the learning for the students who are already proficient? So an idea of how does this become cyclical in our district? And how would we define this? So as administrators, we went through and came up with sort of a mission statement or a guiding statement of how does this look And so we came up with in BPS, our professional learning communities foster a culture of learning for all students by leveraging collaborative teams, data-informed responsive teaching, and shared accountability in a cyclical process that drives continual growth for both educators and students. And so from that point, we started thinking about how does that look physically next year? And one of the pieces we looked at was, as you are fully aware, we have a lot of systems and processes that are rolling out this year. One of our worries was the amount of pressure we would put on our administrators and in turn on our teachers. And one of the things we noticed within the PLC process was question 1 and our instructional model really align well. There's a lot of pieces within it that speak to 2 of the most powerful practices in education, which is teacher clarity and collective efficacy. So if we can clarify that learning for students and help our teachers understand that what they do makes a difference, those are 2 huge pieces. And so we tried to pivot around that. So as we laid out our PD plan, we started talking about realistic goals. And one of those was to really get through that question 1 and lay the foundation for our instructional model in 25-26. We get into that question 2 next year. So now that we know what we want students to learn, how will we know if they've learned it? And then follow up in that 3rd year of what are those questions during that question 4 of the PLC. So for this year, our rollout has been, we've tried to stagger that for our teachers. So again, we don't want to just throw this at people and run away. We do want to come back to it in pieces. And so from the instructional model component, we broke that out by quarter and picked off 2 of those 8. I know Dr. Tyndall reported on those in the last school year. For our 4 questions of the PLC, we focused on question 1, and we actually broke that into 3 chunks. So first, identifying those priority standards. What are those standards at that time of day, that essential learning at that point in time that matter the most for student learning, and then breaking that into learning intentions and success criteria. How are we going to communicate that to kids? And so really that's been the focus of our year, is moving through that. And so I'm going to lean on 2 of our experts here. We have an administrative team that gets together every so often and talks about progress checks and where we're at and planning our next steps. And they've been 2 instrumental people on that. So I'll hand this over to Dr. Rob.
Thank you, Dr. Rob, Bennington Elementary Principal. Here are 2 examples from the elementary buildings. At our elementary buildings, we've seen a ton of success with this year. We've always had good conversations about kids and how they're doing and data sharing, but this year has really brought some intention and purpose. And so as Jimmy kind of touched on, focusing on question 1, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Part of that is really breaking down and looking at our standards and deciphering what is our intention of learning. So what do we want students to learn today? And then how are we going to know that they learned it? And some of that is that student agency of being able to explain to a kiddo, how will you know when you're successful? So you can see up here, one of them's from one of our math interventionists and one of them's from a 2nd grade classroom. And those are just 2 exemplars. There are many, many great things happening out there. But I think this will really help us as we look at next year and look at our assessments, because we will have already defined what essential learning is and how we're going to know and how we're going to measure that.
Hi, Renee Rucker, principal at Bennington Middle School. Well, for the last several years, we really have been working collaboratively with PLCs between both buildings. That has been a huge focus. What we have really enjoyed this year, though, is the district perspective and making sure that the district is aligned with us. I think, Jimmy, I don't know if you mentioned it, but a lot of the different buildings were working through PLC processes, but they weren't necessarily the same K-12. So I know from my perspective, it's been great to have conversations with Mr. Applebeck and our teachers. We are in line, so it's a unified force. So that has been wonderful. At the middle level, all core teachers are going through this in their department areas. So exploratory and core alike. So like he said, our focus is on what kids should know and be able to do. Teachers have worked through priority standards, going through their curriculum maps, making sure we're having those great conversations about what is our focus, because there are a lot of standards and we want to make sure that we are honing in with each unit and helping kids see as well what it is that we want them to learn. Because we know, like Rick Stiggins says on there, kids can hit any target that they know about, and that stands still for them. So if you help explain that, they understand. Couple different examples up here for my teachers as well. They look a little different at this point. One's a science example. Some of our teachers have the learning objective running across the bottom. It's a building expectation, actually district expectation, that these learning objectives are posted or shared throughout the class. One of my favorite things to do is if I'm doing a walkthrough, going up and asking a student, what are you learning about today? And I love it because I've done this ever since I've been in administration, but now when I ask kids, it's actually usually aligned to the learning objective. It's not just, oh, we're reading the story or I'm doing page 23 in the math book, right? So I love this process. I love curriculum. I like talking about learning, and that is what the focus of our PLCs has been about. It's about student learning and how we can best support kids, how we can provide that instruction. I do want to share that I know this takes time. And at the high school level, they're also going through with all of their different curriculum areas, different grade levels, and that is challenging. So to get everybody on the same page, so we appreciate the time that is provided on the early outs. We're all in different places, different understandings, whether it's a building level or a teacher grade level. It's a process, but it's been a great one. So thank you for that. Questions for me?
So, I appreciate and I'm glad they were able to join us so you can hear from the people working with our teachers every day. But one of the things, we do face a lot of successes in doing this, but also challenges. And I think one of the pieces I've appreciated is each of our building might be good at one thing, but it's not always the same thing between them. And so being able to work on those things that need to improve in one area, while also strengthening something we might be really good at. So a big credit to all of our principals for taking on a lot of difficult conversations to try and lead this in a unified fashion. So thank these two for being here today. Are there any questions that we can answer for you before we step away? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I do believe this is going to be one of the most impactful things that we've done in a long time, and we're trying to do it right. 3 years, a year on each question, think about that. But we want to make sure that every conversation is the right conversation and it's happening in all the buildings at the same time. That way it becomes our culture, it is our foundation for our learning moving forward. So I'm super excited. I want to thank everybody. We've had so many teachers and administrators that put in tons of work, getting everybody aligned when you have 4,500 students and 350 staff, different teachers. Like it does take time, and it is hard work, and they've done an excellent job. So I appreciate everything.
All right, I got ahead of myself, but now I can finally discuss. Okay, the first item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on curriculum proposals, curriculum and personnel proposals. Looks like we have 3 here today. If you're gonna walk through those, Dr. Blas?
I will. So we had 50 proposals submitted this year. Started looking through each one of those. Obviously, they get ranked. We try to have the highest ranking ones to go through first. A little bit different this year, knowing that we're obviously transitioning to a second high school in a couple of years. And so these were ones that we kind of felt like were almost transitioning in nature. That way we had to get them done because the second building coming online. The first one is to add additional coaches to support our growth and participation. So right now, the current, next year's freshmen, if we have juniors that, let's say we split juniors and down, the freshman and the sophomore classes right now, we're seeing more and more cuts that we have to make because we just don't have enough teams. Facilities are already stretched. We know that we want to try to get as many participants out of those classes as we possibly can. If you cut down and then all of a sudden split into 2 buildings, you're not going to have enough athletes for both buildings. And so it's our goal. Obviously, our coaches and our administrators do an amazing job of having as many kids able to participate as we possibly can. So we never cut unless we have to, but there are times that we have to in our current setup. And so we want to try to add a few different programs and coaches within different areas to try to minimize that for the coming years. And so right now the proposal says it costs $47,000. That's if every single program had to add. I don't know that that's the case. I think back then we had 29 girls out for girls basketball. We didn't cut. And so I don't know that we're going to be adding another program if, you know, we have 30 out next year. But if it's 40 or 50 or whatever, it'll allow us to continue to do that. So that's a kind of a worst case scenario, but we do want to try to increase our participation in the freshman, sophomore areas to allow that transition to go smoother. Second one is boys tennis. We have the tennis courts now that just got completed. We currently only have girls tennis, of which we've been renting out facilities around the state. Obviously, we have the courts now, and so it would be great to add another opportunity for our boys athletic program to have boys tennis in the fall. Right now in the fall, we have cross country and football. It's just those two. And so it'd be nice to have an additional opportunity in the fall for them as well, increasing us up to 3. Third one on there is the transition from the dean of students to the assistant principal. We added the dean of students last year, and so we now have a building principal, assistant principal AD, an assistant principal, and the dean of students. And so we'd like to transition that dean of students that we think we'll probably be rehiring this year to an assistant principal position. So then it goes from basically a teacher contract plus days to an administrative contract. The reason for that is because the pool of candidates that we would get from that position will increase significantly if it's an assistant principal as opposed to the dean position. Knowing that there's going to be a transition of our administration into the second high school, odds are this position or one of them, this person will become the administrator at either the new high school or the current one. We want to make sure that we have the best candidate pool possible. And so it's going to move into an assistant principal, whether it's this year, next year to 28, 29, but we can do it now. We have a better pool of candidates. So I felt like that was a need as well for those transitions. All in, those 3 proposals, and again, the coaches one's not going to be near as much as what we have on there, but it'd be $74,620 and be allocated for the 26-27 budget.
Any questions? I just want to say I appreciate you guys going through the curriculum committee. I'm sure that was some tough choices, trying to narrow down things to what we can do this year with the financial constraints. And I like the idea of planning thoughtfully on the additional coaches and trying to evaluate what the coaches think they need. So that was a good idea to come up with that proposal. So thanks for that. Any other questions, feedback, comments?
Nope.
All right, I move to accept the recommendations by the curriculum committee for 26-27 curriculum and personnel proposals, numbers 19, 9, and 44, as outlined in the November 10th, 2025 curriculum report and pending the 26-27 budget approval.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further comments or questions? All right, Jenny, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on bid contracts for the second high school project.
Okay, so this is actually spanning 2 different bid scopes. First bid went out on September 9th, and there were 13 bid scopes in there, and you guys approved 8 of those at the September 23rd meeting. So this is the final 5. In addition, we have our large bid opening with 59 bid scopes on November 20th. Right now, Hausman is going through each one of those, making sure that all the bids are apples to apples. That way, a recommendation comes in, we know exactly what we're doing. 3 of those 59 are on here today as well. So I don't know if it's going to be the January meeting, a special meeting, February, somewhere in there. We should be done with another 56, and then we'll have all of our bids in and up for your approval. We had good coverage. You'll see everywhere. I think other than one had 2 all the way up to 7 different bids in the different scopes. So that's a good thing. Generally, the more people you have bidding, the better off the prices are. The pre-bid estimate for all of these was $9,680,955. There are recommendations on all there. All of them, again, we looked over not just the bid amounts, but the contractor experience, the vendor's ability to meet the deadlines that we had, the proposed timelines, and then just the importance of that time of delivery as well. And so we're recommending Marsh Creek Concrete, AM Concrete, Hausman Construction, Alphaland Surveying, Northwest Steel Erection, Kuchera Painting, and Bear Services would all be approved. These bids total $9,548,970. So it's about $132,000 under what the pre-budget was, the pre-bid budget was for each of those. So right on, a little bit under, just what you'd like to see. Last thing, if these were approved tonight, this would be about 31% of the project has been bid out or approved for you guys after tonight. So we're getting there.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No, we've had time to look at it, so maybe not. But, okay.
Under budget is good.
Yeah, under budget is good. I just wanted to confirm that all of these were closed bids in the sense that if Hausman's bidding, they're submitting a bid like everybody else, correct?
Yeah, Hausman actually has to submit theirs in advance of everybody else, and so it goes directly to us. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. There is a proposed recommendation.
I move to award the bid contracts for interior flat work to Marsh Creek Construction for $1,632,103. Paving to AM Concrete for $3,048,932. Access and maintenance to Hausman Construction for $1,185,000. Hoisting and material handling to Hausman Construction for $890,000. Surveying to Alpha Land Surveying for $121,900. Steel and precast erection to Northwest Steel for $2,216,865. Waterproofing to Kuchera Paint for $433,100. And termite control to Bear Services for $21,070 for the second high school project.
Second.
Thank you, Tim and Jeremy. If there are no further comments or questions, Jody, call the roll, please.
Kara? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes,
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
motion passes. Our third item this evening of new business is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on district purchases. It looks like we have a bus that we're proposing.
This one's a little bit different. In fact, we've got a lot of transportation updates that need to take place. We've got an aging fleet, and so we're always looking, we know that we have some buses that we've got to get replaced as they're definitely towards the end of their life cycle. In addition, some of the rules are changing, so we're gonna have to update some of our vans as well. And Jeremy does an amazing job of looking for deals. You know, when they show up, is there another school district that's selling them? Also online auctions as well, they've been an option for us. But what's happened is we've actually missed out on a few because of, especially the online auctions. So you find a bus on there, you do your research, you find out it's really a pretty good bus. There was one just about a month ago that kind of prompted this discussion of building and finance, where it's probably not a lot different than some of the other buses that we bought. And I think it sold at auction for like 40-some thousand bucks. I don't have approval to do 40,000. And so by the time building and finance, we get to a board meeting, you guys approve it, it's done, it's over with. And we've lost out on 2 or 3 buses already this year. We would go to the building and finance committee and say, hey, this is a great option. And if it gets over that threshold, there's really not much we can do about it. And so it kind of came with the idea of giving advanced approval up to $150,000 to allow the purchase of used buses or vans as needed. And mostly this is going to be, we'll always work with the building and finance committee. We're not just going to go buy a bunch of things, but if something shows up in an auction, it gives us the ability to act on it. Because we've lost out on some pretty good opportunities here in the last couple of months. So what we'd be looking for is $150,000 of authorization in advance.
Thank you. I know we did discuss this in building and finance, trying to figure out a good process or plan to give them a little bit more flexibility, but we did miss out on pretty good deals, so that was unfortunate. So this is kind of what the administration recommended, and the building and finance is in support.
And we have a replacement cycle. We wouldn't be doing anything outside of what we're planning to bring to you within the next year or two. We have replacement buses that are coming up and replacement vans. We just look to do it a little faster and maybe a little cheaper.
So just to be clear, there'll be a process, say Jeremy shopping for deals, find something, he just doesn't have a blank check to go out and say, here's my credit card.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. What we've been doing in the past is Jeremy will bring an idea to Dr. Blumenkamp. We'll make sure that it's been thoroughly researched, and he's got a lot of really good contacts, and so he's done a good job of that. Once we felt good about it, we typically contact building and finance committees and say, this this is something that we were looking at, we're thinking, well, maybe, well, we only had, up to $25,000, and feel like was a worthwhile purchase. They would say yes or no, and then we would move forward, but we just couldn't get that far along.
Sure.
Yep.
No, that's good.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I move for approval of the purchase of used buses or vans by the administration not to exceed $150,000 to be paid from the depreciation fund.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll, please.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion passes. Speaking of saving money, Rob, thank you. Discuss, consider, and take action on our technology purchases. So,
Yeah, so each year, we have obviously technology that we need to update, and then new technology as we continue to grow. That typically comes to you guys in March or April. Rob was out doing some Black Friday shopping, and there were some opportunities for us to purchase some of our rotational equipment. If we did it early, they're offering some pretty incredible deals for us. And so the first one on there is the Chromebooks. This would be for our 6th and 9th grade students. We update the 6th and 9th grade every year, so this will be coming to you in March. The second one is for some MacBook Airs for our staff devices. This is a kind of a heavier staff device year compared to others, but this was the plan for this year. And then some touchscreen Chromebooks K through 2 on there as well, and then the licensing fee. And so the total for the technology purchase is about $315,000. If we paid the same prices we paid last year for this exact same number, which we were planning to bring to you, it actually would have been about $431,000. And so by using these deals that Rob has found, we could save the district about $116,000 this year by doing it now as opposed to waiting until April or March to do. Our budget for this year on the hardware purchases was $500,000. We still have other purchases that we're planning to bring to you in March or April, but this deal was pretty good on the front end, so we just thought we'd chop it up and bring this for your approval tonight, and then back in March or April with the rest of it.
any questions, comments? All right, I move to approve the technology purchases as presented.
Second.
Tim? Thank you, Tim. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Rob, for your proactive searching. All right, the next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on our mechanical service contract.
So the district has currently has a 3-year contract with Ceres for our mechanical servicing, which offers, we found the single source provider has really been good for us. It allows some consistency of those that are working on our system, so there's some familiarity with them. There's consistent maintenance on them as well. Then as Dr. McKeon said earlier, training provides the controls on the back end. That agreement is up at the end of this month, and so we did an RFP process, had some bids that came in on that. We were looking to service the HVAC equipment, some preferred pricing as well on the repair work, and then the service for the controls. And so we were recommending Ceres, that we renew another 3 years of Ceres. It gives us 2 scheduled inspections per year. This has been really good for us to be proactive on equipment that we know either A, is about ready to fail, or B, it's coming, and so it allows us to figure out what we need to replace a little bit faster before it becomes more of an issue, or we put money into it that we shouldn't have. And so those have been great. They'll do the inspections as well, and then we have preferred pricing that comes with it. So what they are proposing, or what they submit in their RFP, is $68,969 in years 1 and 2, and then $70,969 in year 3. And so then with that, it's $125.75 per hour, and so that would be our rate for all 3 years. Freezing that rate in is probably beneficial to the district, obviously, as well. And then the $25 trip charge. It did break down each of the buildings, so you can see, obviously they vary based on the number of HVAC units that they have, and the condition of and how old those are. Those last year, for just historical context, we spent just about $240,000 on HVAC repairs as well. We got 8 buildings, a lot of units, and they're not aging, but, some of them are starting to get to that 10 to 15 year, 20-year mark in our different buildings. And so, those are things that Bennington hasn't thought about for quite a while, but, Pine Creek is almost 20 years old now. And so we're putting a little bit more money into it than we have in the past. This is actually less than what we paid in our previous 3-year agreement. And so our previous 3-year agreement was just under, it was $76,494 annually. And so on this 3 years, that will save about $20,575 as proposed in the RFP. And so the Building and Finance Committee went through all this as well and are recommending the approval of the 3-year agreement with Saris as the district provider for HVAC inspection and service needs.
Thank you.
And there's nothing in here that doesn't say, when we have a unit that needs replaced, we do put it out to bid and make sure that we are always getting the best price as well.
Any questions?
I move to approve the service agreement with Saris as the provider for mechanical services on district HVAC equipment at a cost not to exceed $70,969 per year for a term of 3 years.
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll, please.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Saris has been a really good partner with us, so we've enjoyed working with them. We're excited to extend that for another 3 years.
All right, next up is the approval of an early graduation request. It looks like we had one this year.
Per our policies, we have one junior that's requesting early graduation. The student and their parents have met all the obligations when we have Dr. Lamberty to discuss the request. They've submitted that in writing. And I think they've met all the criteria and it's up for your approval.
Thank you. Any questions?
I move to approve the early graduation request as requested.
Second.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll, please.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, the next item is review and discuss our superintendent evaluation. And thanks to all the board members for timely completing the evaluation of Dr. Blas. I have provided him with each of your individual evaluations as well as a summary and numerical context when they compare to last year. I also sat down and met with him and discussed the feedback we provided. So thank you for doing that as always. And my encouragement is to you to continue to provide feedback, not just one time a year, but if there are things you'd like to see him doing, or obviously things he's doing well, but please keep the communication open. So we have a statement from the board that summarizes the feedback from this year. So I'll just go ahead and read that. The board is required under Nebraska statute and contract to formally evaluate the superintendent's performance at least annually in each year of employment with the district. All 6 board members provided an evaluation of the superintendent's performance from January through November. The board will perform its next evaluation of the superintendent next December of 26. The superintendent and the board president reviewed the feedback from the last year and noted areas of both strength and opportunity. The superintendent's performance evaluation reflects 6 priority areas, including board relations, community relations, staff and personnel relations, educational leadership, business and finance, and personal qualities. Board members agree that the superintendent demonstrates strong performance in the following areas: communication that is consistent, detailed, and transparent, analytical and strategic decision-making under pressure, strong leadership across instructional, operational, and financial domains, organization, work ethic, and long-term planning, and consensus builder. Particular strengths were noted with Dr. Plaza's ability to communicate, build consensus and rapport with the community, and make thoughtful and strategic decisions. The board expressed opportunity for growth and work-life balance and delegation to address the high volume workload, as well as engaging the board beyond the boardroom and board-related business for team collaboration. So in conclusion, the board is very happy with the superintendent's job performance and looks forward to a great year ahead. So thank you very much. On behalf of the board, thank you for your hard work. I know it's a lot of hours and we greatly appreciate everything you do to make this district a success. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any sort of action items, just a discussion. So thanks everybody for participating. That's a key job of the board, so appreciate everybody's feedback. All right, the next item is for us to go into executive session to discuss certificated staff negotiations. And then for everybody in the room, we did not expect action from tonight's executive session. So in advance of that, I wanted to highlight a couple reminders of some upcoming dates. It seems pretty far away. It's hard to believe it's the middle of December already. Our next board meeting is, our regular board meeting is January 12th at 6 o'clock here in the district office. I'm certain we'll have committee meetings. There's building and finance is going to meet on January 7th to discuss negotiations. And then there is a professional development opportunity if anybody's interested on the board. NASB is hosting a legislative conference in Lincoln, January 25th and 26th. So with those reminders, I move that we enter a closed session for the purpose of holding a strategy session regarding collective bargaining, as an executive session is clearly necessary for the protection of the public interest. Thank you, Tim. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. And if anybody needs their form signed, feel free to come up. We're happy to sign those for you.
Yes.